Welcome back. So in the last lesson, we finished building our app and it works on both desktop and mobile devices. So now we want to go get some users. So what we'll do is we'll build a landing page that's going to be the home page. And in that page have some content, but also have the action to sign up users to a waitlist. So I went ahead and did some of the work on the homepage because I do want to focus on some particulars in building this out, one of which is those actions, plus a couple of other things. I want to add something in my style guide here that I'll reuse in between each section on this page, which is just going to be a little horizontal divider to give it a nice visual thing there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add a hyperlink to a particular word here that goes to an external link. So first, let's just run through what I added behind the scenes. First of all, in the style guide, I added some things we're going to use in this lesson. You'll notice in the typography section, we now have a paragraph and an unordered list. So in the paragraph, what we have is I pulled in a paragraph element, gave it a style class that I created called paragraph, and all that is 1 EM, so 16 pixels right now, and a line height of 20. And then similar on the unordered list, created a class called unordered list, gave it a line height of 20 and a font size of 1 EM. And then I inline on this page again, I just pushed this in 40 pixels so it lined up with my other elements, but that doesn't carry over if I reuse that unordered list class. I also created these, what I'm calling message containers. So these will come into play when we create the action to sign up users, because we want them to get some feedback that when they signed up, it worked. And so this will show when they sign up. Also, if something goes wrong, they get a warning message. And then this neutral message we'll use if for some reason they had already signed up for the waiting list and then they sign up again, it'll just tell them, you've already signed up. So I'm using here, again, my success color, my warning color, and then for the neutral one, I'm using the secondary color. Let's just go into one of these and see the class that we'll reuse later. So we have the background color. We made the font color white so it shows better. And because this was a default container, like before, I took off that min height of 100 by putting in 0, and it had a fixed width, which I don't want, so I made that auto. And then the padding takes care of the space that I want around the text, and then it has a border radius on the border. So let's create that horizontal divider and put it in the style guide that I talked about. So we're going to put a container in between the sections here, and we're going to do the same thing on the home page. We have sections on the home page, and we want to put that little divider between them. So on the page, grab a container. So this is just an empty container, and all we want to do is make like a 1 pixel tall colored line essentially. So let's name this divider. And let's create a class for it. Divider. Go into it. We'll give it a height of 1 pixel. We'll give it a width of 100 pixels. We'll give it the same thing. We need the min height on it to get rid of the min height of 100, so 0. And last thing, because I want it, so you see it appearing here, well, 2 things. I want a background color. So actually, let's go grab our background color. We'll use the secondary one. Copy that. Go back. Give it that background color. And now you can see it. I know it's small on the screen there, but now we want to center it. So we're going to use margin auto on the left and the right. Done. There it is. Let's zoom in a little bit. So I'll put one here, down here, and then I'll go ahead and put them in the page and come back and we'll keep going on this lesson. So I added a second divider here after the typography section. Now let's add it to the home page. And then what we're going to do on the home page is two other things. We're going to build out the sign up for waitlist section and the inputs needed. And a sneak peek of what that's going to look like is this. And then add my hyperlink down here to an external URL. So let's go and just add a container here. And we'll put it right after this section hero desktop. And then all we have to do is give it a name and give it that utility class that we just created. And there it is. So now let's just copy it here, paste it. We want one so we can see it on mobile as well. And then another way to do this, let's collapse that, is to also, you can duplicate it. And so let's drag it between the promo video and the FAQs. Okay, so now before we build the waiting list section, let me walk through how I created the hero section up here, and then quickly through the promo section. So it's obvious how we did it if you're using this pattern. Let's see. I took the same approach that I took on the app itself. And so to make this responsive, I created a section for the desktop version of the hero part with this heading, this content, and this image, and then a separate one for mobile. So I'll just step through each element and show you how this is done. So in this section element itself, I've created this utility class called padding 60 pixels top and bottom, which I've applied to every section on this page because the default section padding is 100, which seemed like a little bit too much for me in this case. And so I wanted to override that with a little bit less padding between the sections. And then the section home desktop class is similar to what we did on the app page, where this shows by default, but then this section disappears at a responsive, in this case, tablet width. And then very similar on the mobile section, padding 60, section home mobile, hidden by default, displayed flex at tablet. Now stepping through heading, just padding of 15 pixels, and then on the heading itself, I believe I applied our H1 heading from our style guide and text align center. Now we have a container that holds the content and the image, and similar to a couple of the other pages, actually, here it is. Like in some of the other pages, I'm taking this approach using grid, but in this case, I'm using 1FR, 1FR instead of 2FR, 1FR, which are where it was, or 1FR, 2FR, where it was like over here, this 1/3, 2/3 approach. This is 50-50. So in this case, you could call this 0.5FR, 0.5FR, 20FR, 20FR, just so they add up to being half the container each is what I'm doing here. And then that grid has our 1140 class, and then the text container is columns, so they're up and down. And I have an H2 for the heading. And then here's our paragraph coming into play with the paragraph class from the style guide. And there's an element in Bildr called the unordered list, which is a bullet list. And then we've applied that class from our style guide as well. And then one note on the unordered list here: to change and add list items, you go into properties and then type what you want. Now for the image container. In terms of styling, I did flex row with this inline of justify content flex end to push the image, if you can see this green line here, to the right of this container. And I wanted to do this because if you can see here, I wanted to line up with this button from the header, which I forgot to mention. The header we're going to do in a separate story to do the sign in action after we get people on our wait list. So next is the mobile version of this. So in that version's heading, same thing, 15 pixels, H1 and center on the heading. And then, so here's the main difference between the mobile setup and the desktop setup. I'm using grid, I'm using the max width container, but instead of grid template columns, I'm using grid template rows, so that instead of things being side by side, they're stacked on top of each other. And a little bit different in terms of syntax here. Instead of rows 1FR, 1FR, I did repeat 2, 1FR, which is the same thing. And then put some padding around this, which let's look at it on mobile, just so there was some nice white space here. Oh, and there's that extra list item I added to demo, and I'll delete that. And I think the only other thing here in the text, yeah, I put some margin bottom on this text one in this version because just to give it some space between the list and that image. And then the container for the image itself in this version, I did flex row again, and then instead of justify center and justify content end, like in the desktop version, I did justify content center because, well, it looks better. If it was at end, it would be pushed to the right here while this text was more centered. Now let's review that promo video section so that you can see how you can drop in your own promo video here if you use the pattern. So it's another section. It has the 60 padding, and then it has a container that is flex column, center, center. So it's top to bottom and everything's centered. And then it's within that 1140 container. Then not much more. An H1 heading. And then the video, we did the same thing that we did with the videos in the lessons collection when we add them. So this is a pulling in a paragraph element in the properties, switching it to a div. And then in the display text, I grabbed the URL from the YouTube video, put it into the embedresponsively.com page to generate the responsive embed code, and then pasted that code here. So then that way, when we're on mobile, like I think we already have up, you can see it fits nicely. Okay, now let's build the sign up section. So below the promo, we'll add a new section. Right there. We'll name it sign up. Or we can go a little more detailed. Sign up to waitlist. And I don't want to style anything here directly. I do want to put on that 60 pixel padding class I created. And then we need a container to start. We will call this container sign up. We want display flex row. No, we don't want that. we want our 1140 max width container. We want flex column because we want top to bottom here. And similarly, center, center. Now within that, let's get that heading. Not header, sorry. Cancel that out, heading. Call this join the waitlist. Let's keep it as an H2, but make sure it has our H2 class that we created, so we're being consistent everywhere. And then we want a paragraph below that. And I won't put any text in the paragraph for now. I'll just leave it as the default lorem ipsum, but I do want to put our styling from our style guide on this. Okay, so now we want to create our inputs and our messages that we're going to connect to our actions later in the next lesson, which is signing up the user to the waitlist. So let's do that. In this sign up container, I want to add 4 new containers. So let's put one in here, and then let's duplicate it 3 more times. That looks like I missed one. Okay. Now let's name each of them. So the first one's going to be the sign up input, which is going to contain our email input, our password input, and our submit button. And then the other ones are going to contain the messages. So we'll do this one as success message, which hopefully we always get. Error message. There it is. Yep. And then, well, God, we've been calling it neutral message. Or maybe you'll get this one because people are going to be so eager to keep signing up for your course. You just don't want the error one. So let's now build into the sign up input. And I want this one to be flex row because I want these to be going across the container. And we'll do, let's see how flex center goes. Okay, so now let's put in our inputs and our buttons into this container. So these built-in elements, we have the email input. We have the password input, which is awesome because you'll see when we get to the action that this automatically comes with, like, if you type into the box, it shows dots instead of what you're typing. So you can't see the password. And then we need a button. So now let's just style this and space this a bit. Let's give these names and placeholder text. So we'll do enter email, enter password, and then I believe let's align this a little bit better. There's some margins on the bottom of these inputs that I want to override so they align better with the button. So even though we did that center, that's what's happening there. So I'm going to go inline, margin bottom, 0. That one's fixed. And then we'll also give this one some margin on the right to give it some space between it and the next input. And then on the password input, we'll do that margin bottom, inline, sorry. Zero. And let's style that button. give it some better text. So button, name it sign up. Oops. We'll make the display text sign up. And then we want to use our colors. So I think, why don't we use our primary color? And then, yeah, let's push it a little bit over to give it some space between it and that password input. So margin left, same distance, 15 pixels. Okay, almost there. So let's create the messages, which we'll create them and then we're going to hide them, because in the next lesson what we'll do is we'll only show them once the sign up goes through. So we'll hide the inputs and show the message. So let's build it for now and then we can use it there. So really quick, now that we have something in our style guide for this, I'm going to apply the success utility class to the first one, and then put a text box inside it. So there's the text, and we'll say thanks for signing up. Now notice this text is black. I think I must have missed something in making this white. So what I'm going to do right now, I think, is just go inline on this and make the text color white. And then if there's something wrong in my style guide or elsewhere, I'll fix it for the pattern. So let's make this look better right now. Oops. Okay, that looks good. So we'll add our error class. And a text box to this one. Sorry, I'm moving around a little bit here. Let's see. All right, text box. We'll say, oh no, something went wrong. Make it white. And if you're bearing with me, I really appreciate it. We're almost there. And then, I have too many F's. Yeah. One more. Neutral. And this one's going to come into play when, if there's the case that the user had already signed up and they're on the wait list. So we just want to let them know we appreciate it, but you're already in there. So we need the text box. You're already on the list. And let's go color white. One, two, three, four, five, six. 6 F's. Okay, so they're all there, and this looks terrible because they're all there stacked up, and we don't want to see them. So before we get to the next lesson, what we're going to do here and what we're going to use in the actions is to apply the display none utility classes to each of these, so they're hidden by default. One more. So there we are. There's our waitlist section. This actually won't look great on mobile, but I'm going to, for the pattern, create the responsive version of this, which will essentially be, instead of using flex row here, I'll use flex column. So on a narrow phone, narrow screen, they're on top of each other. But instead of walking through all that styling and doing it, I'll put it in the pattern and it'll be there. Okay, so last thing I do want to show is just how I did the FAQ section, and then we're going to make one of these words within an element a hyperlink to an external link. And so let's see this section. Let's collapse this whole one. Great. So in our FAQ section, we have that padding again of 60 top and bottom. And then this container of FAQs is simply our max width container, and then a heading of H2. And then I have each of these paragraph dash question, paragraph dash answer. So in the question ones, I just went inline on these. I may come back later or not, I'm not sure, and make these style classes in the style guide. But all I did here for the question is just make the font a little bit bigger than the answer text and add a font weight to it to make it bold or bolder. And then in the answers, I put a margin top of -10 because I wanted a little bit more. I wanted this a little bit closer to the question, and then margin bottom 15 pixels to make the next question have a little bit space between it. So on the last answer, let's put in a hyperlink. So we have this question, who created this course? You can contact the creator here. So I want that word here to be a link. So you can see that's in this display text. What we have to do is we actually have to go to our style guide. And remember from a long time ago, we had this link class that we created. I need to go into that element and actually grab something from its JSON, which is its class name. So if I go in here, you can actually see the JSON behind this element. And up at the top here, there's these attributes, and you see two classes. This first one, 254, the second one 31120. The first one here is representing the container that's around that element, and the element itself here, which has that styling that we want, is this CSS 311020. So I'm going to copy that and now go back to our display text on this paragraph. And what I want to do is I actually want to put a little bit of HTML in here, because the reason is right now in Bildr, you can't put an action or a URL on something within an element. You could put it on this whole paragraph element to make the whole thing a link, but I don't want to do that. I want to be specific just to this word. So I'm going to put in my HTML a tag. Hopefully I typed this correctly. So a href equals, I'm going to put my website, and then I'm going to put the class in here so it's styled with our link styling. So in quotes, pasting in what I copied, we'll close that and then close the a tag. Let's hope that worked. So it's styled. Let's just test in live view that it is actually my site. Perfect. All right, that was a long one, but that was a huge one. So next one, we're gonna get into signing users up. So we're gonna work on the action that's associated with this button. See you there. Bye.